Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're a returning viewer, you know we dive deep into some of the most unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins. And if you're new here, buckle up, because today's story is one that might just change the way you look at pocket change forever. What if I told you that a simple, unassuming 1-cent coin minted in 2011, yes, that tiny copper-plated piece you've probably seen thousands of times, ended up being worth a staggering $701 million? Sounds like fiction, right? Well, today we uncover the unbelievable journey of that very coin, how it was discovered, the chaos it caused, and how it became the most talked about numismatic treasure in history. It all started in a small town tucked away in Vermont. Life moved slowly there. People knew each other, routines were steady, and big surprises were rare. A retired librarian named Gregory Whitmore had made coin collecting a casual hobby in his golden years. He didn't have a huge collection, just a modest assortment of pennies, nickels, and the occasional quarter that caught his eye. Every Saturday, Gregory visited flea markets and antique shops, usually spending no more than $20. He'd chat with the vendors, sift through piles of old coins, and look for anything unusual. On a chilly February morning in 2023, he wandered into an estate sale just outside the town limits. The house belonged to a reclusive elderly man who had passed away the previous winter. The heirs were in a hurry to sell everything and move on. Gregory found a small cigar box filled with loose coins and paid $5 for it. Not thinking twice. At home, Gregory examined the coins under his desk lamp. Most were ordinary, worn from decades of use. But one caught his eye. It was a 2011 1-cent coin, but there was something different about it. The color was deeper, more bronze than copper. The surface shimmered strangely under the light, almost as if it had layers not seen in regular coins. The texture was slightly rough, and the detail on Lincoln's profile was unusually sharp, almost sculptural. On a hunch, he placed it under his old magnifying glass and started noticing oddities. The date looked ever so slightly shifted, the 2011 not aligned perfectly. The mint mark was missing entirely, which in itself wasn't rare, but combined with the rest of the anomalies, it gave Gregory pause, curious but still skeptical. Gregory posted a photo of the coin in an online forum for amateur collectors. He didn't expect much, just some feedback or maybe someone pointing out that it was a common error. But within an hour, his inbox was flooded. Collectors from around the world were asking questions, demanding better photos, and offering to buy it immediately. One user claimed it looked exactly like a rumored experimental strike from a cancelled minting process the US Mint supposedly tested in 2010 and scrapped before public circulation. Gregory was bewildered. Days passed, and interest in the coin didn't die down. In fact, it exploded. A well-known numismatist based in Chicago, Dr. Evelyn Granger, reached out personally. She offered to fly to Vermont to examine the coin in person. Gregory agreed. When she arrived, she handled the coin with a reverence typically reserved for priceless artifacts. After 2 hours of examination using her portable spectrometry tools, she looked up at Gregory with an expression of stunned disbelief. According to her findings, the coin's composition included traces of platinum, something completely unheard of in 1-cent coins, and the die imprint was a unique pattern only seen in cancelled prototype batches. The US Mint had never admitted such coins even existed, let alone released one into public circulation. Word spread quickly. Coin World magazine ran a cover story calling it the 1-cent that shouldn't exist. Major news outlets followed. The Smithsonian Institution reached out to Gregory, expressing interest in acquiring the coin for their numismatic exhibit. Auction houses from New York to Hong Kong began bidding wars just to represent the coin in a future auction. But Gregory wasn't ready to sell. He wanted to know everything: why the coin was made, how it escaped the mint, and why it had gone unnoticed for more than a decade. Digging deeper, investigative journalists uncovered a buried report from a Freedom of Information Act request made years ago. According to internal US Mint documents, there had indeed been a secretive project in 2010 to produce ultra-durable coinage for overseas military bases. The aim was to use a platinum-infused alloy to prevent corrosion in harsh environments. The project was deemed too costly and abandoned. All prototype coins were ordered destroyed. Yet somehow, one coin survived. Speculation ran wild. Some believed the coin was smuggled out by a mint employee who disagreed with the destruction order. Others thought it might have been accidentally mixed into circulation during a routine mint audit. A more bizarre theory suggested that the coin was never meant to be real at all but a test of public tracking and rarity value, a sort of social experiment in currency perception. The truth remained elusive. The coin, now dubbed the Platinum Penny, became a media sensation. Gregory, overwhelmed by attention and wary of theft, kept it in a secure vault. Offers surpassed $300 million within weeks. Wealthy collectors and foreign museums made bids through intermediaries. A Saudi prince reportedly offered a private jet, a villa in Tuscany, and $450 million cash. Gregory declined. He wasn't interested in wealth for its own sake. He wanted the coin's story to be told in full, not just sold to the highest bidder and locked away forever. Then came the twist no one expected. A former mint employee, now in his 70s and living in Arizona, came forward anonymously. He claimed responsibility for saving the coin. According to his account, he had been part of the experimental minting project and was horrified when it was shut down. He believed the coin represented a potential future of durable currency and couldn't bear to see all the work go to waste. One night, he slipped a single coin into his lunchbox and took it home. Years later, feeling guilt but unsure how to come clean, he placed the coin among other spare change at a local charity drive. Somehow, it wound its way through the economy, unnoticed until Gregory found it. The revelation only added to the coin's mystique. Now it wasn't just a rare object, it had a narrative of rebellion, secrecy, and redemption. The Smithsonian renewed their interest, now offering $500 million and naming rights to a new exhibit. Gregory still hesitated. But in August 2024, he made a decision that stunned everyone. He agreed to auction the coin, with one condition: 10% of the proceeds had to fund numismatic education programs in underserved schools across America. The auction, held at the prestigious Ballington House in New York City, shattered all previous records. After a tense, 47-minute bidding war, an anonymous bidder secured the coin for a final price of $701 million. Gregory used his portion to quietly fund libraries, educational scholarships, and a foundation for historical preservation. He declined interviews after the auction, choosing instead to return to a quiet life. The Platinum Penny was placed on display in a secure museum wing, visited by thousands each week. Historians, collectors, and everyday people stood in awe of a coin once worth a cent and now priceless for what it represented. Years later, the story of the 2011 1-cent coin became more than just about money. It symbolized mystery, the unexpected value hidden in ordinary places, and how history can pivot on the smallest objects. In schools across the country, students held replica coins in their hands, learning that value isn't always what's printed on the surface, it's in the story, the people behind it, and the choices made when no one's looking. And that, dear viewers, is the tale of how a single 2011 penny, plucked from obscurity, rose to become a legend worth over $701 million. But perhaps its real value lies in how it changed lives, sparked imaginations, and reminded the world that even the smallest things can carry the biggest histories. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next story. Next 2000 D1 cent USA coin, where we explore the most unbelievable stories in coin collecting history. Today's episode takes us on a winding journey through time, chance, and destiny. At the center of it all lies a coin that changed everything: the 2000 D1 cent, a copper-plated zinc penny that would later rock the numismatic world with a staggering value of $768 million. This isn't just a story about a coin, it's about mystery, deception, discovery, and the pursuit of legacy. Our story begins not in a collector's vault or auction house, but in a forgotten shed outside Durango, Colorado. An old man named Victor Hanley, nearing the end of his life, stumbled upon a box he hadn't opened in decades. The shed was covered in dust, the roof slightly caved in on one side. His grandson, Caleb, had been helping him clean out the place in preparation for selling the land. Inside the box was an old blue coin folder, the kind children used back in the 80s and 90s to collect loose change. Most of the coins were typical, worn from circulation, but one caught Caleb's eye. "Pop, this one's shinier than the rest," he said, turning the small copper piece under the light. The obverse bore the profile of Abraham Lincoln, with a sharp, clean strike that made the lettering look unnaturally bold. The reverse was centered and crisp. But what truly made Caleb pause was the mint mark, a clearly struck D, denoting Denver. The year below it read 2000. Victor squinted at the coin and nodded. "I remember that one. Picked it up at the gas station off Route 160. Something about it felt off. It was too perfect, almost like it had never been touched." Caleb, a history major and part-time YouTuber, didn't think much of it at first. But later that night, curiosity got the better of him. He took the coin home and started searching. The 2000 penny wasn't supposed to be rare. Over 8 billion of them had been minted. But his research led him to forums where whispers of a mysterious variant had persisted for years. A version of the penny struck with experimental dies, part of an abandoned plan to switch minting techniques. The more he compared his penny to the photos online, the more convinced he became that his was different. There were subtle differences, sharper details in Lincoln's hair, a doubling effect around the word liberty, and the faintest of ridges at the edge of the coin that suggested it had never been fully pressed into circulation. One collector referred to this version as Type X, a name born from speculation that the US Mint had created a batch of test coins that accidentally entered the money supply. Caleb posted a photo on a numismatics subreddit, expecting a few likes and maybe a couple of skeptical comments. Instead, his inbox exploded. Within hours, collectors were messaging him offers, thousands of dollars at first, then tens of thousands. One man, claiming to be from Luxembourg, offered $200,000 for the coin on the spot. That's when Caleb knew this wasn't just another penny. He took the coin to a local coin shop in Boulder. The shop owner, Eli Carpenter, was a former Mint employee and one of the country's leading experts in coin authentication. As soon as he held the penny, his demeanor changed. "Where did you find this?" Eli asked. Caleb told him about the shed, the folder, and his grandfather. Eli placed the coin under a microscope and fell silent. After nearly an hour of intense examination, he finally looked up. "This isn't just any 2000 penny. This is one of the Phantom 12. Caleb had never heard of the term, so Eli explained. In 1999, the US Mint had begun testing new coin die technologies intended to streamline production while increasing security. A dozen prototype coins were struck in early 2000 as part of a clandestine trial in Denver. These coins were never meant to enter circulation. In fact, official records of their existence had been scrubbed. The trial was abandoned after internal disagreements, and the coins were supposedly destroyed. But Eli and a few others believed that a handful had somehow slipped into the wild. Until that moment, no one had ever proven it. Caleb was stunned. He called his grandfather that night, who could barely believe it. "I always had a gut feeling about that coin," Victor said. "Funny how the past sneaks up on you." News of the find leaked out within days. CoinWorld published an article calling it the ghost penny. Offers skyrocketed. A private auction house in Switzerland contacted Caleb with an unprecedented proposal. They wanted to host a sealed bid auction, starting at $500 million. Caleb was torn. Selling the coin could change his family's life forever. But keeping it, preserving it as a piece of history, also had its allure. He decided to travel to Washington, D.C., and visit the US Mint headquarters, hoping to find answers. There, he met with retired Mint director Charles Armitage, who had been in office during the experimental phase. Armitage confirmed the existence of the Phantom 12, though he refused to go on record. "What you have," he told Caleb over coffee in Georgetown, "is more than a coin. It's a piece of buried history, a reminder of the experiments we try to forget. That coin represents what happens when bureaucracy meets secrecy." The media frenzy grew. By now, networks like CNN and BBC were running the story, and financial analysts speculated that the coin could become the most valuable in history. Caleb hired legal counsel and coin experts to verify everything. They ran metallurgical tests, X-rays, and dye pattern analyses. All the evidence pointed to the same conclusion: this coin was unlike any other 2000D penny ever documented. When the auction finally took place in Geneva, 12 bidders arrived in black cars and private jets. Some were known collectors, others anonymous billionaires. The bidding was silent, conducted via a secure server. The final bid came from a Japanese tech magnate who had made his fortune in virtual currency. He paid $768 million for the coin, making it the most expensive piece of currency ever sold in human history. Caleb and Victor became overnight legends in the coin world. The story of the shed, the folder, and the long-lost prototype was retold on documentaries, podcasts, and news specials. But Caleb wasn't done. Using a portion of the proceeds, he founded the Hanley Numismatic Research Center, dedicated to uncovering lost coin histories and preserving rare finds. He offered scholarships, hosted educational programs, and even funded exploratory trips to old mint facilities. The center became a beacon for collectors and historians alike. Years passed, and still only one of the Phantom 12 had surfaced. Rumors continued to swirl about the others, hidden in sock drawers, buried in backyard jars, passed unknowingly through vending machines. Caleb often received messages from people hoping they'd found a twin to his ghost penny, but none matched. It remained unique. One rainy evening in 2029, Caleb returned to the shed in Durango. His grandfather had passed away the previous year, and the property had been preserved as a historical site. He walked through the musty old room and sat in the same spot where they'd first opened the coin folder. In his hands, he held a replica of the 2000D penny, framed in glass. A knock on the door startled him. It was a young girl, no more than 12, holding a velvet pouch. "My dad said you might want to see this," she said. Inside was another 2000D penny. It looked different. Caleb's heart skipped a beat. The story, it seemed, was far from over, and as word began to spread of a second Phantom coin, the world braced for yet another chapter in what had become one of the most mesmerizing sagas in the history of money. 1 cent, struck in secrecy and lost to time, had rewritten everything, and it wasn't finished yet.